subsidized. Or if there is any tax on the industry, that tax can be reduced as an incentive to encourage them to install STPs and discharge the cleared effluents. This may kindly be considered. We are thinking seriously. The Ministry of Water Resources is considering in the area of agriculture sector.
I think you have made a point very clearly.
Yes, this point.
Incentives point, we are very seriously looking.
Right.
Whether
Thank
it
you.
is for industry, for municipal corporation, for
Exactly,
agriculture, for farmer or whatever, and we are debating.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, next gentleman, please.
Thank you. There are 4-5 main things. Firstly, can we ask the ULBs to start, at least the class 1 ULBs to start measuring the water flow at their city and the wastewater flow that they are doing? Secondly, can we have a provision whereby all the proposed land use plans for the towns that are along the banks should be approved by this Ganga Commission that is being set up? The third is, are we addressing water sharing issues between upstream, downstream users? And fourth is, again, taking on the incentives points. Can the ULBs be given incentives to, reduce their wastewater generation by, say, 20%, 50%?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think all
Thank
these
you.
points are part of this. When we share the complete draft with all of you, I think many of these things will get clarified. So now just last your question and Dr. Rajiv Sinha.
Thank you very much.
Please excuse me, we will talk later on, okay? Because,
My name is Amanul, I'm from SPML Utilities. Sir, the panel briefly touched upon the accountability of the municipal corporations and the governmental bodies, but there was a question that Professor Dubey had asked about the sanctions. So how do we really bring the accountability? Could you please tell us how do we really bring the accountabilities to these institutions, the municipalities and the governmental bodies? Thank you.
Rajiv?
I just want to finish off by a very quick comment that there's a lot of questions where a lot of comments were made on the maps. I just wanted to mention that as a part of the Ganga project, all of these maps are already available for the entire Ganga river, and we have very, very scientifically delineated what we have actually called as a river space. We have actually used the word called river space, and that has been done very scientifically, and we have delineated the active floodplain as well as the valley margin. So rather than going by the arbitrary methods of 2 kilometers or 1 kilometer, there's already such maps are available. I just want to inform the panelists on that.
Thank you very much to all of you. Now, I thanks to all the panelists, but for giving their valuable opinion and the audience to interact. Now, Professor Tari wanted to talk with you on some of the issues, so I'm handing over the mic to Professor Tari.
Just very quickly, this is the first draft. And this is the first time that we are discussing these issues in public. Okay, there will be several rounds of discussion. Okay, and unless we give the complete, information to you, I'm sure the issues will remain. So, on that part, I think it is our this thing. We are not ready as yet to give it. First, we wanted to discuss, preliminary discussion. Ki, are we going on a right path? Okay, that was the first thing, and we will deliberate in detail. And as Uday has said, this is going to be more based on scientific information, and Rajiv has already supported. We have already created maps. Even when we talk about environmental flows is not the lean flow period, lean flow we are talking. Environmental flow also means there has to be certain minimum flow during the rainy season also. So that is essentially will be governed by the geomorphological requirements, right? So how much, sediment has to be transported or whatever, what is the size. So that is all again being taken very scientifically, and we will have all the maps that is available. And we are not talking about the schedules. Okay, we are in the, but first we wanted to get some kind of, opinion of the people and the experts at large. Okay, are we going in a right direction? Okay, and of course we have got some good comments and we will be able to incorporate that. But yes, rest assured that this will be accompanied by all scientific documents, reports, specific definitions, and each of these will get debated at various forums. Even what is river, how to define river, what is land space, what is active floodplain, all those things will be clearly defined, and the activities and all. So that work is going on at the background. But our strategy generally is when we discuss on one issue, we discuss only on that issue, do not deviate on that. So right now we are only looking at the constitutional provisions from legal kind of thing. Are we on the right path? Can we do it? Does the constitution allow us to do this kind of things? These are the issues that we wanted to get an opinion, because we are not very confident about that. So we thought, and I think the purpose has served. So I'd like to thank the panelists for that.
Thank you, sir. In fact, you know, I think last meeting which I have with Professor Tare, I think in October, sir, October or September, then he said that, Indrajit, can you come up with, you know, something which at least give us some sense on this particular draft? Because, you know, we have mapped the entire legislation, what is impacting on the Ganga River. And possibly that is the first time this type of work has been done in India. And let me draw your attention also, we do not find any precedent of an act, very hardcore act in other country. Though there is a lot of river basins are there, but those particular basins are based on mainly on executive order, not on the hardcore act. So there is, this particular exercise is a bit unprecedented exercise, which has not been undertaken by, you know, somebody earlier. So when we have started thinking about what should be the, you know, mechanism, what should be the structure of the commission or authority or tribunal or whatever you talk about, the executive authority, quasi-judicial authority, we are not very sure that what should be, you know, its structure. Somehow after a lot of discussion and deliberation, we have finalized on some of the issues. It is required to do a lot of work, but today's deliberation, your input, whatever we got from the panelists, it will be a very enriching for us to go take it further. I think I will thank to all the panelists for their valuable time, valuable comments, and whatever they have supported in our endeavor, because it gives a huge moral courage now that we are in the right direction, what Professor Tare told, and also to all the all the audience and their comment and their support in this particular endeavor. We'll possibly, as Professor Tare told, once again come back to this larger forum with the, you know, modified and upgraded act, and we'll have a discussion on this. Thank you so much. I think lunch is waiting for us, sir. So please join in lunch. Thank you so much for your time.
Good afternoon and welcome back. This is perhaps the last session of the track A. The two sessions we are combining. Okay, so we have a panelist already on the dais, and one or two will soon join. We'll take up that. What I want to do is just give a brief on why we want to have this session and what do we want to achieve out of it. Okay. We're talking about cost and pricing of water. Let me just explain, because cost may mean many things to many people. So let me say what I mean by cost. When water comes to our doorstep, when it is in the nature, we can consider it to be free. Okay, but that's also a question whether we can consider it free. But let me assume that the water which is available in the ocean, the water which is available in the river, if I go very close to the river or the pond or the reservoir, if I take that water at that point, it is free. I do not have any cost to that. But then when it comes to our doorstep, obviously the transport cost is involved. So transfer and transport cost as well as the treatment cost is involved when it comes to our doorstep. And in most of the uses of water, the consumption is very less. Okay? Essentially 80-90% of that water we do not want to keep with ourselves. Whether it is industry, whether it is domestic, we want to get rid of that water from our premises. And so that water has to go out from our premises to some place. Okay? And before it goes to some place and to the nature back, it involves transfer, transport and treatment cost. So this total expenditure that we have to make on this anthropogenic transport of water, somebody has to bear that cost, right? Now, to whom we charge, it's a different thing, but this we have to understand that there is an expenditure that has to be made on these operations. So I can call it this, the first part we can call it as water supply, the second part we can call it as wastewater. So the water supply and wastewater cost has to be met. Who is charged, who pays for it, that's a different thing, but this basic thing has to be understood. And the main reason for not maintaining the STPs is essentially there is no interest in getting rid of that wastewater. The interest is definitely there that it should not accumulate in your premises. The industry does not want to accumulate wastewater into their premises. Every individual household does not want to accumulate that wastewater into their premises. So there is enough interest in them to make sure that it goes out of their premises. But after that what happens, that is none of their business, right? If they can get rid of it, that's what is fine. But of course it is not acceptable to some other people, and that's why we have regulations on treatment and disposal and things like that. But the owner of that waste has no interest whatsoever in spending even a penny on that, right? But when it comes to water supply, this is not true, right? If the water that comes to your house, if it is not potable, we are ready to spend on that. We are ready to put RO, we are ready to put all those kind of things because we understand the consequences. The consequences of wastewater are on somebody else, and that's why we don't worry about it, we transfer this. Nevertheless, it is important to understand that the cost is to be met by somebody or the other, and the question here we are posing is, who should meet this cost, okay? And if you want to really protect rivers, okay, how do we protect the river if you do not have a discipline? How do we protect our groundwater if we do not understand this mechanism? It is not that ultimately people are not paying for it, right? Why we have to have more and more treatment units at the household level? Because our surface water is polluted, our groundwater is polluted. What was a good water is no more available in the good water form, and that's why every individual has to pay. And we have another industry that has come up, mineral water, bottled water, household treatment units and all kinds of things. So indirectly we are paying for that. And those of who are not paying for it, they are paying indirectly in the form of going to the doctor, okay, suffering, their quality time goes. So some way or the other we have to pay. So we have to make this connect. At the same time, all our water bodies, rivers and all have become sick. And that cost we are anyway, that we are suffering. So the idea is here that this expenditure has to be made by somebody or the other. And I want to ask the panelists, how do we meet this expenditure? Who will pay for it? And if you do not evolve a mechanism and say government should do it or this municipal body should do it or whatever, now municipal party or government, from where will they do it? They will do it only from our money. Okay? So this is the question that we have. What kind of pricing policy you have? Now at this point of time, we have already spelled out our priorities for the use of water. The first thing that we have said, and there is a general agreement that I understand, is the first thing that the water should be preserved for nature. Okay? The organisms which cannot speak for themselves, it is our responsibility to speak on their behalf and make sure that the water is made available to them. So that is what we are preaching. And it is not that we have so much of love or affection for those organisms, but we have realized that we are dependent on those organisms. So if we do not protect, we are also not protected, right? So it is this understanding that has changed our thinking now. What we used to think that water is only for us, not for those organisms, they should be protected, because if we do not protect them, we also are in danger. In fact, human beings are the most endangered species. Okay, the civilization itself, if we do not take care of this. So it is with this understanding we are at least now realizing, and if not acting, at least saying that the first priority for water should go to the nature. Okay. Then second priority we are saying is for the drinking purposes or domestic purposes, minimum domestic uses or whatever. So we are ready to accept this, okay, for those parts, those people who cannot afford to pay, okay, we